In September of 1066, Duke Ernst of Austria wakes up in Vienna from a night's sleep. Having dreamt about greater things for himself and his dynasty, he's immediately greeted by a note from his messenger saying that he's now allowed to vote in the Holy Roman Empire's election, at which point he immediately decides to vote for himself. He sets out to set his plan in motion for a greater dynasty of von Babenberg. He knew that to press his goals he would need to conquer most of Austria and bring it under his direct heel. And Duke Ernst the Schemer wisely concluded that sometimes, in order to achieve one's goals, one must be willing to get one's hands dirty. In August of 1067, the first murder plot came to realize. Count Azor of Austria will have to go. After only the slightest snag in his plan, Duke Ernst the Schemer managed to dispatch his first enemy with ruthless efficiency. He was lost in a forest and was never found again. A few months later, the Duke wisely concluded that he's a Duke. He can simply revoke the titles, and so he set out to do exactly that. All things as it should be, the natural hierarchy of the Middle Ages, but he knew that no dynasty could survive without marriage. And so an alliance was formed with the Duchess of Tuscany, an alliance sure to bring glory to the von Babenberg dynasty in the future. Record of the Duke's actions for the rest of 1069 is slightly vague, but contemporary articles would suggest that he spent almost a year looking for marriages but it seems that the rest of Europe had decided that the Duke of Austria had too many alliances already, and there would be no more marriages. The Duke then wisely decided that if he cannot have a marriage by alliance, he will have a marriage for genetic traits. His heir was married off to a woman legendary for her beauty. They are sure to give birth to an excellent heir someday. In 1070, the Duke of Austria learned that he was second in line for the throne of the Holy Roman Empire. He wisely bided his time, knowing that seizing this throne now would only result in disaster, and that while the title of Kaiser would never be his, perhaps sometime down his dynasty, there would be a von Babenberg on the Holy Roman throne. A truly ambitious man, the Duke of Austria then had another dream, of a greater Austria, under the von Babenberg name, an Archduchy of Austria. But he knew he had not the military force to take what was his by right and by might, so he would need to take what is his by guile. In order to take the Duchy of Steiermark, he would first need to weaken it from within. Duke Ottokar of Steiermark would have to die. With the young son now on the throne, the time for the war for the Duchy of Steiermark was now. Rallying every spare man in the grand city of Vienna, they marched south into the Duchy of Steiermark. But even though they had a grander army, the Duke knew that any conflict would end in tears. So once again, the Duke bade his time, for he had allies in Tuscany that would eventually show up. With the army from Tuscany in tow, the joint allied force decimated the Steiermark army, and they marched upon the capital. Records from Austria's marshal from the year 1073 suggest that it was at this time that the Duke was yelling at the top of his lungs about the usefulness of siege weapons, and that perhaps the marshal should have told him that having siege weapons in this year would have been a useful thing to have. The war for Steiermark concluded in August of 1074, and Austria now held most of the de jure territory they would need to form the Archduchy of Austria. But Duke Ernst wisely knew that his job was not yet finished. The grim work would need to continue, for the murder of the rightful Duke of Steiermark would still need to happen. Count Adalbero would need to die. After the conquest of Steiermark, an attempt was made to bring the vassals in line, or at least bring them down to a point where they would no longer be a threat to the Duke. After going through several options, he concluded that the simplest way to deal with his new vassal countess would be a political marriage. In this way, the Duke threw his second son into a political marriage with a countess, with an insignificant age difference of just about 18 years between them. December of 1076, the Duke revokes the final title he needs to bring Austria under his thumb. Having now fully established his seat of power, the Duke knew that he could now move on to the next phase of his plan. In October of 1079, the Crown Prince of Poland tragically died in an unexpected event while eating some Austrian sweets. This left Diana, the King of Poland's daughter, as the only one in line to inherit the throne of Poland, conveniently married to the Duke of Austria's son. In July of 1091, the King of Poland came down with leprosy, with no other heir but his daughter married off to a foreign man, and certainly limited time left on this earth. The future for the Kingdom of Poland seemed to be uncertain, but what is certain is that it would certainly be under the von Babenberg name. In February 1088, the unthinkable happened. Duke Ernst of Austria peacefully departed this world at age 52. After 22 years on the throne of the Duchy of Austria, he leaves behind his son Leopold, now officially Leopold II of Austria, to continue his dreams for the Archduchy of Austria. The king is dead. Long live the king.